Well, what do I say about this one? Critters 3 is set in an apartment building, and it clearly has less money than the previous entries. But of course the most notable thing about this one is a very prominent child actor. A star, you might say. Yes, that's right, the kid from Kindergarten Cop. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always, the little crate, is Tim.
Always ready for some knee-high mischief.
Yes. I mean, you have to say that because you've got two children who are both at various stages of the knee-high mischief scale.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, Wyatt may not have much time left in that scale, but he's still in there technically.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
okay. All right. Well, this is a horror movie podcast. We get together. We talk about horror film, and today we're doing Critters 3. Why? Well, there's two reasons. One is we did Critters 1 and 2, so obviously we had to do 3 at some point. And two, there was a vote on Patreon for which sequel we would do next, and Critters 3... rather surprisingly, I would say, won and defeated both the Next Hammer Dracula and the third Resident Evil movie, which I was sure they were going to pick because I feel like they would want to torture us, but somehow saner minds prevailed, and here we are for Critters 3. So it's going to be a light romp of an episode because it's a light romp of a movie, and We'll go through it. We'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get to the spoilers, and if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can support us over at Patreon and get bonus content and all that stuff. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, yes. Question, Tim.
Okay.
Had you seen Critters 3 before?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, you can't say of course now. I get that you've seen the Critters movies before, but like, do you think for a general, even for like a general horror audience, if they're like even 10 years younger than we are, do you think that there's any chance that there's an of course after like the answer to have you seen Critters 3?
I mean that actually is a good question. Because I'm not sure what the cultural relevance of the critters are. Gremlin seems like a thing that has some staying power and nostalgia for people, so I think that's like something that even younger kids will rediscover or whatever. But then critters, I don't know if that's as much. Obviously like horror people know it, but does the general audience know it? I'm not sure. I think what you might be alluding to as well is that like if people do know it, it's probably mostly the first two that they're familiar with.
I think it's partly that. I feel like Critters, though, for an upcoming horror fan, because even I think when I was a teenager, I feel like Critters was relatively deep into like getting into horror. It's not like it's near the top of the surface where you're discovering all the classics and all that. It was already a few layers in. I feel like if you're like a teenager now or in your early 20s, somewhere in that range, and you're discovering horror movies and you're seeking them out, I feel like you have to be getting pretty deep and having seen a lot of horror movies before you're stumbling into Critters and whether or not you should watch the Critters movies. It doesn't feel like it's like high priority stuff. I think Gremlins is like this weird thing that's very pop culture. Gizmo's kind of this iconic thing, and I feel like there's enough people who will actually try and pass down their love of Gremlins onto their kids. I don't know if Critters quite has the same thing going for it. It feels like a horror franchise that, while did come back for like a weird reboot on Shudder at one point, it's mostly been left in the past.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing too, is like I don't feel like I see Critters popping up on like Netflix or something that people might discover it and be like, oh, hey, like, it might be on one of the deeper services like, Shudder or Tubi or something. Or, I had to watch this on Plex because I do have the Blu-ray box at home, but all that stuff is still at the old house, so I didn't have access to it. I don't mind watching the free streamer services with commercials. Sometimes I actually, kind of like it. It's almost like nostalgic to be like, oh, hey, ad breaks or something. But Plex is just one of those services that it's like every 5 minutes, it's a goddamn, 3-minute ad break, and it was kind of driving me crazy. But yeah, it's definitely something that you have to seek out. Like, yeah, I don't think people are seeing it. I mean, one of the most like relevant things that I can think of is the fact that it's kind of connected to the first Ninja Turtles movie. When Raph is like coming out of the theater.
To quote the line that Raphael says, he says, "Who comes up with this stuff?" I believe when he walks out of the theater, and there's a poster of Critters in the background. There's that. There's two things technically that Critters is attached to. It's that, but specifically Critters 3 will always be the answer in a trivia round.
Right. Yes.
Because when they asked the question, what was Leonardo DiCaprio's first movie? Critters 3 is going to be the answer, and that's this movie's claim to fame.
That's a very good point. Very good. Yeah.
There you go. That's what we're here to talk about today. Which it's so funny actually. Like just watching the opening titles of this movie, and he's like fifth or sixth build, because I feel like ever since Titanic, which was not that long after this, he is always first build, because he became a movie star and he was always first, maybe second build if he, like, I could see maybe in The Departed, like Jack Nicholson maybe got like higher billing or something because seniority or whatever, but like by and large he's typically first, maybe second at a push. So that was just kind of funny, especially since everyone who's billed before him in this movie did not have a career after this. They all faded into obscurity, and that's whatever it is. That said, one actor did have one notable movie before this, though.
Okay.
The Little Brother.
I don't know. What was he in? I didn't recognize him.
He was in a movie right before this. Like the movie he did right before this. This came out in 91, so did this. No, it was the year before. A year before this, the other movie he was in came out. With a huge action star.
Is it the like Kindergarten Cop or something?
It is Kindergarten Cop. He's the main kid in Kindergarten Cop. That's who that is. This was his closest he ever got to reaching that fame again, I believe. So...
it's been a while since I've seen it, but I'm fairly confident there's at least one actor in this that appears in Critters 4.
Is it the same actor who was in Critters 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's probably a fair bet then. Okay. Well, we'll see how that goes when we get there. Anyway, the basic premise of Critters 3, how are they shaking this up? We're away from the small town, and this one is set primarily in an apartment building in the city. And okay, sure, it's the Evil Dead Rise of Critters. Why not? Like, yeah,
sure.
Good enough setting for a little B horror monster movie. No complaints on the idea. So we'll get into it as we said, but we'll start with a simple question. Tim, what did you think of Critters 3?
Well, it has some critters in it, which that's already. I mean, that's starting off on a good foot. So I'll give it credit. I can never be totally mad at a movie with critters. That being said, I don't know. It's a little bit dull. It's definitely the weakest of the franchise so far. I mean, it's only the third one in, but I think especially after the second one, which was really amping things up and like doing some fun and interesting stuff, had like a lot of like different kills and stuff. This one I felt like it was a little bit of a letdown. It's not like the worst thing in the world. Like it is short unless you're watching it with ad breaks, which goes from about 80 minutes to about 140. But yeah, I mean, like, the characters aren't terrible, but they're not necessarily like super memorable. I don't know. There's like a few like good parts here and there, but overall, it just, I don't know, it didn't do much for me. But yeah, I guess I'm just kind of in the middle. It's like, well, I don't hate it, but it definitely didn't stand out to me like the last one did, and the first one, I didn't think was as good as like the second one either. But I think there's still more going for it, which this one unfortunately didn't have as much. But I mean, again, it's short. It still has some Critters action, so if you're a Critters fan, it's worth checking out. But unfortunately, it's not like I definitely seen these before, but like going into it, other than I did remember that Leo was in it, and I think I'd recalled that it was like something about being like in an apartment building, but other than that, I couldn't have told you much about it. And then even after just watching it yesterday, I don't know. I feel like I still can't tell you much about it. It is a bit forgettable, but I don't know. I don't know if that sounds too harsh. Like maybe, I shouldn't have like great expectations, for a Critter sequel. But I mean, that was basically my feeling though.
Waxing lyrically as always, Tim, for your thoughts there. I mean, obviously it's not a great movie by any stretch, arguably not even a good movie. I will say that as far as like kind of like cheaper sequels go, because you definitely feel the budget lowered for this. There's like 5 critters in it versus like hundreds from the last movie. Although
that's what kind of like
Yeah, to be fair though, I do think, and this is probably just because they used some of the same puppets from last time or whatever, but they are still just as animated though. Sometimes when you go to like a sequel to a movie that had like animatronics and things like that, you'll notice the quality of that goes down. At least the faces and the critters still animated seemingly just as much, at least from memory anyway. So so that's good at least. But I will say I find this kind of a cozy, mediocre movie. I don't know, there's just something about the apartment setting and like the kind of slightly cartoony characters, the ensemble, that I just find very easy to watch. Admittedly, as it was getting to later in the movie and we were sort of like ramping up to the conclusion, I was like, there's not really been that many kills. There's not really been that many big, like, exciting critters moments, and that's where I do feel like it's lacking considerably. Because it's not like the characters in the second movie were, blowing my socks off or anything. This series has never had great characters. But,
No.
Yeah, so it's lesser for sure. I can't really argue with that.
I feel like I could have used more, for sure. Like, when you're gonna do like these apartment settings, like, and again, like I think Evil Dead Rise is gonna have this problem as well, where it's like, like why not just fill it with like a bunch of crazy characters that all get like these wacky deaths, and you don't really have much here. Like, you have like a shitty landlord and the like kind of man crazy woman in curlers and stuff, and like the but then like the main family is just kind of prototypical family, is just kind of dull. There's that like phone repair woman, I guess, who, but I don't know, I feel like she's like in and out of the movie so much. So I mean, why not just? I mean, again, I'm sure everything just comes down to budget reasons, but why not just throw in like a bunch of different crazy, wacky characters and give them some like cool, fun, memorable deaths. Like you said, there's only a few critters here, and then the deaths aren't like super, memorable, and it's a lot of them just like jumping on and biting people and stuff.
For the record, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing there's only a handful of critters. Like, I think in the setting, only 5 or 6 makes sense versus armies of them. Like, I think there's some logic to that, and I'm fine with them saving money on like having less critters. And I think there's a couple of colorful characters. I think one of the problems the movie has, though, not to get too spoilery, but the movie seemingly has no interest in killing off anyone who's not like who's been like clearly been made to be a villain to the audience. Only the villains are allowed to die. All the characters who we in theory feel any sympathy for are safe. So it almost was like a kids movie in that sense, because it's like not willing to actually kill off anyone likable. It's the Megan 1 problem. is only villainous characters are allowed to die. And that's kind of that's maybe an issue here, is that there's actually quite a big ensemble of characters, but so many of them end up just like kind of like being around the whole time. And I think that's a problem. Which, by the way, there's a new trailer for Megan 2, and it looks absolutely batshit. I don't even know what to expect from that.
I mean, kudos to them. I'm like at least intrigued. Like I truly don't know if it'll be good or bad, but they're at least doing a good job of. I mean, you know, we would have probably seen it anyway, obviously, but at least now I'm kind of like, all right, I'm game. Like, let's see where this is gonna go.
Yeah, I mean, any pretense that it's a horror movie's out the window, but we did the first one, so we'll be there for number 2.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a weird, like, I find this like an oddly comforting mediocre movie, but like I can't really recommend it in any great stretch. One thing I will say though is, you said that the main family's kind of prototypical. I will fight you on that a little bit, only in the sense that they swapped the parent and the teenager around. So the family is a single dad, a teenage daughter, and like a young son, right? And we find out early on in the film that there was a mother who died a couple of years ago, so they've been dealing with that. And the dad's the one who keeps saying things like, oh, you know, all these family vacations aren't the same without your mom, and he doesn't want to accept anything that's happening, he doesn't want to move on. And the teen daughter's the one who keeps saying, Dad, you have to deal with this. Come on, let's just try and be a family again. Let's try. Like, she feels like the parent trying to get him to like snap into like acting like an adult. And I'm not saying that's good, or I'm not even saying it's good or bad. I'm not even casting a quality onto it in any way, shape, or form. I'm just noting that at some point, about a third out of this movie, I realized that the roles were flipped from what the usually would be. Because normally the teenager would be the one who's refusing to enjoy anything or participate in family things, and instead here it's the dad.
Oh no, I mean that's fair. Yeah, I'll give him that. That's something. I just meant that, I don't know. To me, they're just kind of boring. Like, there isn't much about them that really stands out.
Sure, I never said they were exciting, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, I will say that there is like a couple of, like, the movie does try to do like some kind of like serious, like heady stuff from time to time. Like, there's this kind of like breakdown that, you know, Leo's character has, you know, like maybe like halfway or so like through the movie, because of some actions that he has, and I'm like, well, this is like kind of serious for a Critters movie. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if I really need it in this kind of movie, but I guess it's interesting that they go there.
It's, yeah. But by the way, he still has the haircut you expect him to have, just for the record. Like, just the hair did not change until, I don't know when he stopped having the curtains, but it was after sometime after Titanic, that's for sure.
I guess, like, when you watch the movie, do you get like, do you see like the star power in him? Like, do you go like, oh, this guy's gonna be big?
No, not really.
I mean, I don't think he's bad in the movie, but yeah, it's not like watching this, you're like, okay, yeah, I can see how this guy becomes like one of the biggest stars in the world. There's
nothing standout about him here, really. I get forced to watch on stream a movie this past week. A really bad thing from the mid-2000s called Aztec Rex. It's about conquistadors arriving in Mexico, even though it's shot in Hawaii, and it's very clearly Hawaii because it's all the places that Lost filmed in as well. But anyway, Deacon Lackman, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but she's in Severin, she was in Dollhouse, she's been in other things here or there. She's a good actress, right? Really like her. But she's in this movie she was in before she was in any of the TV shows that she became well known for. And it's not like watching that movie even, where everyone's terrible, where she was like standing out as, oh, you clearly have a career ahead of you. You know, she still just seemed like as mediocre as everyone else. And I feel the same way here about Leo. Although this is a much better movie than Aztec Rex, just to be clear. Right? Much better, just to paint a picture. But it's the same kind of thing here, where he just kind of blends into everyone else's kind of like okay, kind of cheesy mediocrity.
So I gotta know, is Aztec Rex, is it about a dinosaur?
Yeah, there's still a couple of T-Rexes running around, and the Aztecs are worshipping them. But the movie doesn't have a budget to like have more than like 3 Aztec people. Anyway, so Critters 3, it's very watchable. I will say I did not remember the end of this one actually setting up the fourth one. Like, you know, some movies have mid-credit scenes. This movie has a scene that pauses every 5 seconds for more credits and keeps going throughout the entire credits. Obviously, we won't say what it is yet because we're not in spoilers, but it literally ends right at the end of the credits with a "to be continued." The balls on these people feeling that confident they were going to get Critters 4. Which they did, to be fair, but...
Yeah. I could be wrong, but I want to say, like, these might have been filmed back-to-back or something along those lines, but I don't know. I'm no expert. I could be wrong about that.
I mean, that sounds plausible. It would make sense why they feel so confident, because they're already shooting the damn thing.
Yeah.
Also, it does make me wonder, like, is that how they got this funded? They were like, hey, we'll give you 2 movies for the budget of the last one, and that's why it's like so low budget, is because it's like, hey, we're going to do 3 and 4 together for the same budget as just the first movie.
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Which, given the next one's set in space, it doesn't fill me with confidence for the spaceships looking very good, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see. Because we're going to get to it soon. Will we remember the setup in this one? Like, we'll be so lost if we forget this movie by the time we get to 4.
If we do 4 this year, I think we'll remember it. If it's 2 or 3 years from now, it might be a bit hazy.
We'll have to make sure we find time for it then, shan't we? Yeah, I mean... Oh, there's an old couple in the building, and the old woman's an actress I recognise, Frances Bay. I mean, I couldn't have told you her name, but she's a character actor who I've definitely seen in at least a dozen things. She's in Happy Gilmore. She's Happy Gilmore's mum in that. She was in Blue Velvet. She was in Inspector Gadget.
I feel like she's been on like sitcoms and stuff.
My Name is Earl. She was in that.
There you go.
Yeah, she's just one of those actors that was all over the place in the 90s and the 2000s, and probably before then, given how old she was probably doing stuff before that period. But yeah, episode of My Wife and Kids, episode of Charmed, episodes of ER. Yeah, she's all over the place. Yeah, so you probably know this old woman's face. Okay, everyone, like, I don't know what else we could possibly say without spoilers. So. Spoilers for Critters 3, you've been warned. You probably don't care very much, but yeah. Movie starts with our main family traveling home in a camper. They've been on vacation. We find out later to the Grand Canyon. So the first little section is them stopping at I don't know, what do you call this? Like, where a bunch of campers stop for like a refill and a rest.
I think it's usually just like a rest stop, but
a rest stop. Okay, fair. All right, because it's not a camper, like a camp for campers. You know,
right.
Because it feels like they're just stopping there momentarily. But anyway, yeah, this is where they run into Charlie, or the kids do anyway. So Charlie, if you don't remember, was the character from the first 2 movies who was kind of the goofball who saw the UFOs and the aliens. He had a bit of a drinking problem, but then at the end of the first movie, the aliens took him into space and he became a bounty hunter like them. And then he was kind of like trying to prove himself as a bounty hunter through all the second movie, and even gave his life kinda to save everyone at the end by flying the ship into the big critter ball or whatever it was. And then I do vaguely remember the movie revealing somehow he survived after that. Like, there was a little bit at the end where, hey, somehow Charlie survived, right? Like Palpatine, Charlie returned. So
I think it literally was that. It was just like he kind of like came back out and it was like, oh, no real explanation. He just made it.
Yeah, he just comes out in waves at the end. Because when he jumps out at the kids, when their frisbee goes like down the hill or whatever here, you literally get like a previously on Critters, and you get like a montage of the first 2 movies, which honestly, I genuinely, in my memory, and it had been a long ass time since I'd seen this, and I didn't remember a lot of it, but I genuinely did not think there were any connections to the first 2. I thought this was like where they broke away from the continuity, and it was just, here's a bunch of critters in a new location with new characters, that's it. You know, I really did think that. So I was surprised to see Charlie. I was surprised that he came back later, and I was very surprised that even what the other bounty hunter dude's face shows up in the mid-credits stuff. So, you know, wild times, if you can believe it. Anyway,
I'm a little hazy from the ending of the second one. Like, there's something about, like, he basically got, like, left on Earth, right?
Yes.
Like, they didn't want him to come back into space.
I don't remember what the reason was, but he did stay on Earth, yeah.
Okay.
And he seems to be hunting critters. He's like the permanent Earth bounty hunter for critters.
Yeah.
Like, he's on the prowl looking for them, but just looks like a crazy homeless man the entire time.
Yeah.
Anyway, whilst they're at the rest stop, they meet Leo, who's like, you know, he clearly is into Annie, the big sister character, who's kind of her main character for the movie. He's got like a really pompous stepdad who wears the sweater around his neck kind of thing. And he's kind of like this sort of asshole character. Honestly, one of the biggest, weirdest contrivances in the movie is that this guy turns out to be the landlord that owns the building that the family stay in. So they come back into the movie later when really it feels like they should be out of it after the scene. But that's how Leo comes back into it later, because he comes with his stepdad, because his stepdad's got all sorts of schemes. Anyway, we're introduced to the building.
They're literally like trying to evict. Is it everyone or just that family? I forget.
It's everyone. They're trying to force everyone out because the landlord wants to build, like, he wants to sell the land to like a mini mart or something. And he doesn't want to have to pay them relocation fees if he wants to like force them out officially. So he's trying to use underhanded tactics. He's got the handyman in the building, like the super who's there working for him. He's this over the top character named Frank, who's just a dick to everyone. Like, he's got like a really nasally voice as well. Like, he's like the over the top asshole character that everyone knows is an asshole. Everyone kind of constantly calls him out for being an asshole. He refuses to help the guy moving out. There's a guy named Mario who's moving out with his mattress, and he won't help him. He makes up excuses. When they have trouble outside, he's like, "Oh, you're not a tenant anymore. I don't have to help you." You know, he keeps an out of order sign on the elevator, even though it's working, just so that he can use it and no one else can use it. He's just a little shitbag. So, you know, like, a few more of these types of characters, I think, would went a long way, I think.
For sure. I mean, it definitely makes it, like, you know, very fun. Like, it's always nice to have, like, the very over the top jerk, and then, you know, that makes it, you know, fun when you see them get their comeuppance and stuff. So, yeah, no complaints there, really.
Yeah, for some reason there's I mean, I don't know why they've bothered with this, but like when the family are coming back, their camper van, like the brakes aren't working suddenly, so we have like a little bit of they crash into the other truck and like some of the stuff falls off. I guess it's because they wanted to crack the critter's eggs, because when they were at the rest, there was like a POV shot from a critter coming up to hide under the truck, and there's some critter eggs up there. So that's how they get to the building, and, you know, yada yada. We introduce the various characters. So we have the main family, right? Dad, teen daughter, young boy. We have an old couple who are going to look after the kids when the dad's away on work because he's a train driver, which the teenage daughter keeps saying, "Hey, please don't do this, Dad. We need to be a family." And I'm like, yeah, but he also has to pay for, you know, rent and like you eating dinner. Like, he kind of needs to go to work.
Yeah, and it's like a legitimate job. Like, it's not like he's like, I'm gonna run to Hollywood to try to be a star or something. It's like, oh no, like that is his job.
Yeah, it seems like a job that he's been doing for a while. You know, like there's an old couple who he always asks to sort of keep an eye on them, and he kind of points out, "Hey, you're kind of old enough now to be like just the person in charge when I'm away. It's fine." And she's like, "No, I don't want to be a young woman. Yeah, I still want to be a kid." So you got the main family, you got the old couple, and the old couple, the woman's like she likes to bake, she makes tarts. Cool. Who doesn't love a good tart?
And they were they originally from, was it Beaver Falls or something, or where the original Critters took place?
Let You mean as in were they in the previous movies? I don't think so.
But aren't they like talking about the like they seem to have like knowledge?
Well, not both of them. I think it's just the husband, because the husband's like a conspiracy nut, and he's been reading all the stories about the aliens in that town, so he knows a lot about it. But I don't think they're from there now.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so we got them. We got another woman who's, you know, maybe about 40, who works at the phone company, and that's her character. She's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I thought they were going to do like a sort of like, she's like a, I don't know, like a tomboy kind of thing, because like that asshole Frank has a line when she comes in on her bike where he's like, oh, it's the woman who walks like a man, and I thought, oh god, it's just going to get problematic. And it never really does anything. It basically just sort of all seems to boil down to he feels emasculated because she's more manly than he is. That seems to be all it is.
I kind of would have liked more from this character, because for a while it seems like they're kind of building her up to be like this badass, almost like, you know, the Ripley or something of the Critters universe. And I think that's actually a funny conceit where it's like, you know, she's like this badass, but it's not like she's like a, you know, a cop or like something like that. It's like she like works for the phone company, but she treats that like, you know, this kind of badass job. Like, you know, she even has like a line where she's like, yeah, I work for the phone company or something. But then she just,
actually,
I feel like,
let me just jump in and give you the full line that you're trying to quote. At one point, she says she's going to do something, and someone says, wait, you can do that? And she responds, I work for the phone company. I can do anything. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like that is genuinely funny, and like I would have loved to see more of this character just having like like dumb one-liners or something. But then I feel like she kind of gets sidelined, and then I don't know. I feel like during most of the climax of the movie, she's just kind of hanging off like a phone wire or whatever.
She's given this kind of comedy like pivot where she's then just trapped in this comedy joke for the rest of the movie, and that's kind of it's kind of a shame, because she was definitely she had enough of a weirdness to her with the whole phone company kind of pride that she had. You know, she was almost like a. I don't mean this is a direct one-to-one, because obviously this character's a bit more of a kind of like loser, right? But she's almost kind of like, in Cheers, Cliff is really proud of being a postal worker, and he always talks about the trials and tribulations of being a mailman. I feel like she's like that with the phone company, but she actually seems to be quite capable and knows what she's doing.
You know what? I mean, it's a joke that honestly, like, it doesn't really get old. Like the person that's overly proud of their shitty job, that's like a funny character thing. I mean, that's like, you know, the whole conceit of The Office, you know, basically.
Well, at least for 2 or 3 of the characters, anyway.
Yeah.
So you've got her. You have kind of the middle-aged woman who's always got the colors in her hair, who's always eating stuff, and also when she sees Charlie later on in the movie is like, who is that honk? And they literally do the thing where he turns dramatically to the camera and like operatic music's playing, like the romance music, and it's like, we're doing this, okay. So, you know, the movie does have little bits of like, you know, a sense of humor. It's doing like, I think it stays just afloat above the, oh, this is like actually unpleasant to watch. There's just enough in it that if you like bad horror movies with cheesy characters, there's enough in it to just kind of like have an okay time, but obviously it isn't quite delivering everything it should or could be in other ways. So because, you know, as I was saying, like, you know, all the villainous quote unquote characters are the ones that are allowed to die. That means the Frank, the shitty sort of super character, and the landlord when he shows up, they're the only 2 that really die in the movie because of the 2 villains. And the landlord, to be fair, is absolutely evil. Like, when he shows up later halfway through the movie with Leo, and he's coming, he's like, hey, I'll teach you, son, you know, sport. I'm gonna show you how you get rid of these vermin. Yes, these people, look at this place, there's rats everywhere. This is what happens when these poor people hang around too long. They get fleas because they're animals. They're all animals. We'll get rid of them, son. And I'm like, this guy is a capitalist nightmare. He's a walking piece of trash. So obviously he has to die because he's the worst.
Yeah, I think they almost go like, I don't know if they go too far or maybe if the actor just took it a little too seriously, but it almost goes from the point where like it kind of starts being like, oh yeah, he's like the cheesy villain of it, to where it's like, oh no, he's just kind of like a asshole. Like, you know, like I don't know, I feel like I wasn't having like as much fun with him as I would like other, you know, over the top villains, or like Frank or something, who, you know, it's a bit more, I guess, comical, or you know, like more of a caricature, where I don't know, maybe it's just like the day and age we live in, where like you look at this kind of guy and it's like, oh, I feel like there are really people like that.
Yeah, I think
kind of gross.
Yeah, I mean, I do love the conceit that he shuts off the power in the phones because he's trying to like make everyone want to move out. So him doing that intentionally, but that obviously working for a horror movie because now everything's dark and they have no communication with the outside world. Obviously today that would be as much of an issue with, you know, phones being what they are now, but in 1991 is a bit more of an issue. I think maybe the mistake they might have made is Frank dying first. Because see, if you had like maybe just another like red shirt tenant who wasn't that important, right? What if Mario, right, the one that was moving out, what if he had to come back to pick up something and he died first, right? So, you know, that's someone that you'd feel great about killing, but not someone you're that attached to either. So you kill off a no-name like that first. Because then what you can do is you can have Frank be in the group with all the other survivors, constantly being shitty around them and interacting with them. And that, I think that might have kept a bit of life in the survivor group in the back half of the movie, is having him around for longer, and then you can have him die, like, you know, in the last, you know, 15 minutes, you know, before the final beats or whatever.
You always need someone in the group that you know is like going to betray them at some point, and then, you know, get some type of comeuppance. So I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, have him like push the old lady like in front of him to like save himself or something, you know?
Yeah.
Something really shitty like that.
He like, you know, runs to go into his elevator that, you know, only he can use, and then like the critters chew the wire or something, you know.
Yeah. All good stuff. But he ends up dying first, and he gets bit a bunch of times, and then I will admit, like, I did laugh at the very end of his scene when he's lying down and he's getting, you know, munched on in the stomach, and he looks over across the floor, and another critter's formed a ball to roll at him, and he just goes, "Furball," and then it cuts away. That did make me laugh. Actually, honestly, my favorite like moment in the movie might be after the so like the dad doesn't want to like talk about all their worries and the fact that they may have to move out. He doesn't want to talk about it, and after dinner he wants to watch TV, and the daughter's like, "Hey, let's do something." And when he turns on the TV sparks and dies. It's gone. It's blown up, and he's like, "That's just my luck." And she says, "Hey, since there's no TV, why don't we get you know, my little brother, and we can play a game together or something. We can do something as a family." And he just turns, ignoring what she just said, and says, "Is your battery powered TV you know, in the other room? You can get that for me?" So she does, right? And he's watching TV. And leads up to the bit I really like, that's really funny, is she ends up getting into like a fight with the critters when she's saving the middle-aged lady who's been attacked. And
I think this might be my favorite part too.
Yeah,
go on.
Because basically all the critters are at the bottom of the stairs. She picks up, I think it's the bin, the garbage bin, and she rolls it down the stairs. But the movie, in one genius choice out of a whole 80-minute movie, decides to intercut it with what's playing on the TV in the other room. And what's on the TV in the other room? It's women's bowling. So they basically intercut with bowling and the commentary talking about the bowling and getting the strike as we see the critters get hit with this bin, and then they all fly up in the air as if, you know.
Yeah, and it makes like the sound of like, you know, the ball hitting the pins and stuff. It's so strange because it's such like a stylized, I mean, you know, it's just a quick little scene, but you know, it's just like so different and such like a, you know, an interesting choice versus I feel like the rest of not just this movie, but like the rest of the series, like, you know, doesn't have anything that's as I guess kind of interesting as this. So I don't know, I was the same way. Like I thought like, oh, this is like really cool and fun, and then yeah, it's a little bit of a shame. Like they don't think of more clever things like this to do throughout the rest of the movie. But yeah, it's definitely a nice, like inspired little bit.
Yeah, it's sort of thing where when you're watching it, I think at this point you're still sort of like kind of on board for the most part, because you don't realize that this is the last of this creativity for the, like I think after this, like things feel a little bit more drawn out. I mean, they basically all just barricade themselves in the old couple's apartment. Obviously that's then the landlord and Leo show up, and then he gets killed, and because he goes in to look at the TV that he can hear, he's like, why is there a TV on in here? I cut the power, and we know it's battery powered, so they set that up, and he gets munched on by the critters, and phone lady finds Leo and takes him up to the the room with everyone else, and obviously they're like, hey, why are you here? How did you end up here, Joshua? Because that's his name. But yeah, they're kind of trapped in the apartment, and they're just trying to figure out a way to like call for help, get out, do whatever, and it's basically just the critters like talking outside the door and being like, okay, how do we get in? And then they eventually do get in as all the people are like climbing through the ceiling to get to like this attic space, because this happens to be the top floor. And then once the critters are like in the apartment and they've gotten away and they've climbed the ladder, they've almost gotten the feet, but they're able to shut the door and everyone's fine. The critters just kind of hang out in the kitchen, and like, one of them eats some washing up liquid, so they start coughing up bubbles. And that's kind of the extent of what the critters are up to for most of the movie now.
Yeah, I feel like they wanted to recreate that scene from the last movie where they're all hanging out in the fast food place and they're all like, going, and that was like a really fun scene, and like, they were going crazy and doing all this different stuff. And it feels like they wanted to do that, but either didn't have a budget for much or didn't have like much ideas, because it is just like a lot of them kind of just standing around, maybe like just turning their heads back and forth, and then one like eats some soap, looks like one knocks over some like, I don't know, chili or beans or something, and then kind of like laps that up. But it is just like, oh, okay, like I see what you're trying to do. You want to have like this fun scene, but it doesn't really amount to much.
Yeah, and it feels like they've stopped bothering to try and chase the people either. It's really only when they do something that kind of gives them an avenue in that then like the critters become a threat again. And that's when, of course, the main girl Annie climbs down the elevator shaft to try and like get help. And at this point as well, there's some fires started down in the bottom floor, because there's one critter down there who interestingly screams when he sees Annie. And the other critters come like running.
Oh, right. That was weird.
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'll give it this. Another moment of creativity is when that critter screams, it does this thing where the camera keeps sort of like getting into its like tonsils like this. And I'm like, you know what? This is just such a weird choice. I'm kind of into it.
Sure, yeah.
Just, a little too little and too far between, but couple of inspired moments. I'll say that at the very least.
And not to get like too far past it, but should probably also mention there's a bit of tension when Josh's dad dies, because like they're having this fight, because obviously, Josh seems to be having troubles with his dad. Was it his dad, or did he say stepdad? I forget.
It was stepdad, yeah. He pointed out stepdad, yeah.
But yeah, like they're having arguments, and then he, basically like he ends up saying, like, does he specifically say like, I wish you were dead, or
I think he does, yeah. He says that.
So then like, obviously that's like right before he dies, and like he kind of gets trapped in the other room, and I don't even know if Josh realizes like if it's critters at first that's attacking him, or if he thought it was just like the tenants were like going at him, because I think he says something like, stop, no, like he's like he's kind of like pleading with them or whatever. But it does like set up some like stuff later where he kind of like breaks down, and it's like, oh, like he wasn't like, my dad was an asshole, but like I didn't want him to die, and like I shouldn't have said like I wish you were dead like right before he died, which is what I was kind of talking about earlier. I was like, oh, it's like it feels like he's trying to have like a real like serious moment in this silly goofy movie.
I'll be honest, I don't remember this bit, but I believe you that he said this, but it did not leave an impression on me.
I mean, it's not like, it's like a 2-minute scene or whatever. Like and then they like pretty much forget about it. Like it's not like a big arc for him in the movie, but I did just think it's interesting that they were like, trying to go for something there, because I think it's like he's talking with Annie, and Annie says something like, "Oh, like I can relate because like our mom died," and then he kind of has a line where it's like, "Yeah, but I bet when she died, like you didn't wish that she was dead or something like that," and but then they like very quickly move on. So I don't know, just kind of weird.
Yeah, the movie should have flashed back to her saying, "I wish you were dead, Mum." Like But it's worse though, because she had cancer and she was in a hospital bed when she said it, so it felt like a really pointed, request at that point. So a couple of things happen here. Phone lady tries to climb outside onto like, I guess it's like phone cables. I've never seen phone cables like put out like this before. It's almost like 4 cables in like sort of not perpendicular, they're parallel is the word I'm looking for. They're parallel to each other, right? And it's kind of like I'm trying to think of something to compare it to. You know how like when you've got like a fence, and at the top of the fence there's like an angled part, and there's like barbed wire going across it. It's kind of like that, but with phone cables, and it's like just like a ledge at the side of the building. I've never seen phone cables put out this way on a building. They're always just bolted to the wall. I don't understand why I know why it is in the movie, because so you can stand on them. I'm just wondering if any building that ever actually had phone cables just put out in a way is such it creates like a makeshift walkway or ledge for you to like walk across the wall on. But she tries to walk across the phone cables to try and get down for help. The cables break, however, and she ends up dangling upside down for the rest of the movie. And the joke is that she's trying to swing over to the payphone to get to it, but it keeps just sort of swinging back the way and not quite getting there. Yeah, that's all I've got for you.
And again, this might have been a funnier bit if it wasn't like, oh no, this was an interesting character that I would have liked to have seen, throughout the end of the movie. Like I don't mind the kind of joke of it or whatever. Or again, like this could be like another like fun kill or something if like, she's a couple of feet from the ground and then like there are some critters that are down there trying to get to her, and she's trying to pull herself back up or something. Like there could have been something fun like that, but they really don't do anything with it.
Yeah, or even if it is just like her dangling for the rest of the movie, but there's one critter who's trying to get to her, so every so often we come back and see how the critter's almost getting to her, or how the critter's like gotten inventive and try to get up there, or something, or how she's gotten inventive to fight it off. Something that's sort of ongoing, but she's just swinging. that's basically it. Whilst Annie climbs down to the bottom floor, she encounters the critters, and when it looks like she's done for, in comes Charlie. He's shown up. He's came calling. Apparently because the old man was able to phone him before the phones went out, or something. I don't know. But he like blasts one of the critters, so he kills one of them, but then his gun jams, and he's like, oh, it does this sometimes, and he's trying to like get it to work. Eventually though, she just pulls them into the elevator and shuts the door to save them, and then they climb back up and join everyone else in the attic. And then they're just kind of there until the critters show up to fight them. And then he blasts one of them when the gun gets working again. One of them gets axed down the middle. The old lady gets mad that it's attacking her husband, and she just pulls out her meat cleaver. Because earlier on when they were saying, hey, is there any weapons here? Do we have anything we can use? And they're like, oh, do you have a big knife? And she's like, how about a meat cleaver? And she holds up this giant meat cleaver she's got, which I think was meant to be a little bit funny. And it's alright. It's amusing enough. But yeah, and then the other critter gets put in Leo puts like a bag over it and then like bashes it into the head repeatedly. Although that one ends up surviving, because when they escape to the roof, the crystal from the Fortress of Solitude that for some reason Charlie has, he gave that to the little brother at the start of the movie and said if it ever lights up green, it means there's danger near, there's critters on the way. So that's still lighting up in his pocket, and it's because this one last critter stayed alive, the one that was under the bag and got beat up. He shows up, and they do a whole thing here where this critter dives at the kid, and Charlie does the heroic dive to save him and jumps in the way and goes off the side of the roof. But just like last movie, when it looked like he sacrificed himself to save the day, it turns out 2 minutes later that he's actually okay. He's just dangling off like a lamppost or something, and then falls and lands in a truck next to where phone lady's dangling and swinging around. And that's basically it. That's the movie. Like, honestly, like the back half is like that's the problem for me. I think the first half is fine. The first half sets up enough varied characters. Some of them are really cartoony and villainous, but the back half of the movie does very little critter action. The characters don't really like not enough of them die, I guess is what I'm saying. It just feels really lukewarm and kind of like they didn't know what to do in the back half, which is a shame because I think the setup for it is completely fine. But again, for a cheap sequel B movie that it is, that's keep it in perspective here. I'm not saying obviously Critters 3 is always going to be Critters 3. Critters 3 could have been better, but it also could have been much worse. As
sure,
it could have went either way. So this is okay. As far as anything else, the dad's seen the light. He's going to give up his train job and get a job at the phone company. I actually thought they were going to set up a romance between him and the phone lady, because see when he got hit with the dart, because at one point him and the middle-aged lady get hit with the darts that the critters shoot out, and he gets all kind of loopy. He starts sort of looking at phone lady and being like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "You know me. I'm so and so." And I thought, are they going to set up that she's going to be the new mom because the daughter's already kind of bonded with her? She's going to be the new cool stepmom or something. They never do anything with it. The movie has no interest in taking any of this beyond the bare minimum.
I mean, yeah, it's very sexless. Like, like they could have started hooking up, and then the curler lady and Chuck could have went off together, and Charlie, yeah. Yeah, it could have been fun. Yeah. Annie and Leo, like everyone could have paired up, basically.
I get that they were teasing Annie and Leo, and he does technically ask her out to a movie at the end, but I did have the thought, though, that she's probably still a bit too old for him in this movie.
She looks older.
No, Tim, that was a joke, because Leo's got a reputation for only dating 25-year-olds and dumping them when they hit 27.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
I was making a very good, witty joke, okay? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever mentioned their ages, but maybe Leo's just kind of short, but I thought she looked like a little older than him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what age they were when they shot this. Let me click on her. She was born in 1974, so she would have been 17 when this came out. And Leo, when was Leo born? Oh, also 1974. They're the same age. They were born the same year. So,
all right, that works out then.
He's just short.
he's I mean, God bless him. Yeah, we stand a short king, obviously.
Yeah, but man, either my perception of what a 17-year-old looks like has changed over the years, but Leo does not look 17 in this movie.
No, I would have guessed 14-ish, maybe. I think 14, 15.
I think, they're trying to make her look maybe a bit younger, because she's got, the dungarees on, and they've always got her hair tied back. They're trying to make her feel less like 17. A 17-year-old would be, putting on more makeup and stuff. So I think they're trying to make her feel a little bit aged down. But he legitimately looks, like you say, maybe 13, 14. I'm actually shocked he was... I mean, admittedly, he was probably 16 when they shot it, to be fair. Same with her.
Oh, but, sure, yeah.
Still, I'm kind of shocked that he was even sniffing 17 in this. So that's kind of wild, actually. I've got a bonus segment, Tim.
I mean, do we want to talk about the whole setup for the next movie first, or?
Oh, all right, okay, yeah, I'll do my bonus segment for Patreon after that. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Yes, so everyone's hugging, everyone's happy after the fact. Hell,
Sorry. Even before we get into that, no, I just wanted you to say, you're kind of mentioning before, like, they have like the happy ending and everything, and even like not just the stuff with the dad. And
I think I was about to say what you're about to say, but go on. Yes.
Okay. Oh yeah, but no, like they even do like this like big thing where the ex-wife or whatever of the landlord guy, I guess now owns a building.
Widow of, it's in divorce him. He's dead, Tim.
Fair. But like, yeah, like she comes out of nowhere and it's just like, guess what, everyone? Like, we're giving you all relocation fees and you can stay at this nice hotel while we renovate the building. And I don't know, like I always kind of had like Critters in my head as being the like kind of nastier like version of Gremlins. Like I mean Gremlins does get like a little dark and stuff, even though it I don't know, always kind of seems like it's a kids movie, but there's like some pretty dark stuff in that. But I always felt like Critters was a bit more of like the R-rated version of Gremlins and stuff. But I don't know, like this one it does kind of feel like a little bit like a kids movie in some aspects, like you're kind of mentioning before, and like this definitely feels like an over the top happy ending that's like I mean, don't really need this. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's overly saccharine. I think what I was expecting her to come over and say when she was like, had her arm around Leo, she comes up and she's like, "Hey, my husband, I think owed you guys some money." I thought she was just going to offer them the fee to like move, like, "Hey, like I'll pay the money he was trying to avoid paying you." But she offers that and says, "Oh, we're going to renovate the building, so the money's for you to stay in a hotel whilst we make your homes better, and then you can come back and everything will be hunky dory." Like it's like so. Like she's an angel all of a sudden for them. Yeah. It's like, why did you marry this asshole? You're clearly a much better person than he ever was. Like, I don't understand. Yeah. Is it just because he was rich? Were you just gold digging? Which I fair play. You put in the effort, I guess.
She orchestrated the whole thing. It was, she planted the critters on the car to get rid of the husband.
Genius. She's a mastermind. And then obviously Charlie's like looking around the ruins of the building because all the bottom floor's all been like burned, so he's like looking around to find any critters' eggs that are left, and he does. Like, so it keeps freezing as he's looking, like keeps freezing in his face as he's looking kind of like nervous or scared, and he finds a couple of eggs that some critters have survived. But just as he's about to do something about it, this alien device that he's got on him that he obviously got from the bounty hunter starts beeping at him. And we get a hologram Star Wars style. And it says, "Hey, don't kill those eggs." And the bounty hunter that he's like friends with, quote unquote, from the first couple of movies, his face shows up in the hologram and explains to him, "Look, you can't make a species extinct. And it just so happens that those eggs are the last of the Krites. There's no more of them. So now it'd be highly illegal for you to do that. Instead, we're going to send a pod down for you to put the eggs in so we can preserve them." And then it, this comes crashing down through the ceiling, and then it says "to be continued." So it's setting up that the last of the critters' eggs are going up to space, and we'll pick up from there. Yeah. And I assume Charlie might go to space as well, because he's been the one recurring character that's been all movies so far.
I don't particularly remember much about the fourth movie, other than it, being the one that's in space. But to give it some credit, I think this is like a pretty decent setup. Like, it's not a bad idea for a fourth movie.
The funny thing is I don't even think it needed to have a setup, though. It feels like, okay, I get why you're doing it, but sure. If you just started Critters 4 and said, "Oh, there was a couple of eggs left and it's the last of its kind," all right, okay, there you go. Done.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever. I mean, I really don't remember anything about 4. I remembered 3 better than I remembered 4. I remember 4's in space, and I don't remember anything else, which probably means it's going to be not great, if I was to guess.
Yeah.
But we'll find out when we get to it. We'll get to Critters 4 at some point. Tim, what are you rating Critters 4?
Like you said, it's definitely not the worst movie or sequel by a stretch. I do think it is certainly a bit of a step down from the last one, which I thought was, quite a bit of fun. But I mean, again, it's a Critters sequel, so it's not like expecting like much. I think the first two movies were more in the good range. This I think is getting a bit more like just okay. So to me, I think it's maybe just like a little bit down the middle, but I'm gonna. So like I was looking at like the 5-ish range, but then I think bump it a little bit up because it's I would say if I like I don't hate it or anything, so like I don't want to go like too low, and I don't want to be like straight down the middle where it's like I'm just completely undecided. So I'll bump it up a little bit where I'll give it like a 5.5 and say it's okay. It could be worse, but it was definitely lacking in some respect, and there are moments where it's a little dull, and kind of wished or hoped things would be different. So that's where I'm landing, 5.5.
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking 5.5 as well. It's, I think it's just like nice and consumable and pleasant enough that I think it just, inches over that completely middle line. And again, this is also in the context of you like dumb movies like Critters, so you'll get something out of this, even though it's not that good. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you're looking for actual good movies, then stay clear of this because you're not going to get anything you want. But yeah, it definitely could have been better, but it also could have been much, much worse. So, all right, well, that pretty much does that. Obviously, it's a good time to tell you about Patreon and supporting the show if you want to help keep the show coming and get some bonus episodes that are typically every month. Right now they're a little bit more spread out just because Tim's in the process of moving between houses and whatnot. We've had one in the last few months though, so there's a whole back catalogue of them built up. There'll be more on the way. We did the Mutilator recently. We've got I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer coming up soon before the new one comes out. We're doing that as a bonus episode because it's like a direct-to-video sequel that's not really like tied to the other ones other than just the name, I think. So that'll be a bonus episode, but there's a whole back catalogue. There's little bonus segments. In fact, with this episode that we just did, we did a little bonus segment where I tested Tim on a bunch of actors who got their start in horror movies, to sort of tie into Leo's little foray into the genre before he became, Titanic boy. That's his official title. Anyway, so if you want to support everything, you can go over and do that on Patreon. You can also do it via YouTube membership and get most of the bonuses there as well. You can do a one-time thing as a super thanks. I'm trying to say. Any support from any direction is really appreciated. It helps keep everything coming. But that is the show. Like, subscribe, comment, all the usual things. Helps out a bunch if you do. But that is everything. And next time on the show, we should be looking at 28 Weeks Later, because we kind of need to get that done before 28 Years Later, which is about to hit. So we'll see for that. And I've seen that, but I don't remember anything about it, so I honestly do not know what to expect going in. But that is next time on the show. So thank you very much once again for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.